Welcome to Paris, A State of Mind. Join us as we talk about the good, the bad, the ins, the outs of property rentals and purchases in and around Paris. We'll have topics for renters, owners, and visitors, share questions we are regularly asked, and more. My name is Gail Boisclair of Perfectly Paris, and my co-host is Marie Pistinier of Lokim Paris. Be a part of it. Both of us are proud members of the SPLM, the first representative body of furnished rental professionals. Hey, Marie, how are you? And hello, everyone. Welcome back.
Hi, Gail. I'm doing very fine. How are you doing?
Very good, thank you. Lots of work. Busy, making moves, like always. And you, busy too, I'm sure.
Yes, but it's not a bad thing being busy.
I agree.
It's been business is running, so it's not that bad.
Exactly. I agree. Well, on today's podcast, I think it's a really good idea to focus on something called the État des lieux, which we don't really translate into English because we don't really do that type of thing in the same way. It's called state of the property. And we're going to try to explain why it's really important to have an état des lieux done on check-in and check-out, what should be checked and verified. And usually, when you sign an apartment contract or a housing contract with an owner or an agency, everybody's really happy. It's the honeymoon stage and everyone's just ecstatic and happy duo, lovely duo, or sometimes a threesome if an agency is involved. Oops. Did that come out of my mouth? But when it comes to all the very small details, maintenance and things, questions arise. And some of these small things can really ruin a great relationship. So this episode is very important to both owners and tenants, and it's a really hot topic, so we might even have to do a second episode. Getting started, Marie, what is an état des lieux and when do we do this?
So an état des lieux is something that you do which is in two parts, when you check in and when you check out. It's a kind of like the picture of your apartment or your property when you arrive and when you leave. And this will impact the refund of your damage deposit, because when you sign the contract, you probably sign the fact that you are going to give 1 to 2 months damage deposit. So it's very important. And I would say that even if the place looks nice and you are very in a hurry to just move in and to be home, it's really important to take this time, as well as for the owner. Sometimes they want to give the keys and, at the end of the contract, then they are relieved because they found a tenant. But it's very important that this time is spent. It's not a wasted time. When you do the état des lieux, you will check all the apartments, from the wall to the ceiling to the every little details in order to see what is the conditions. Is it in a good condition or bad condition, a medium condition, like it's used already and everything. And in this document that you will write and sign, you may have what we call, I don't know how you say that, Gail. It's like, when you say like you have une réserve, it's like you can say, for example, that if your property do have like some collective heat, and the heaters in particular, you are not going, if you book in August, you are not going to be able to check the heaters because you don't know if it's working, because it's not going to be open for the collective.
I don't know what we call that in English.
So you can say on the document, the heaters are looking fine, but sous réserve, it's like, it's good up to the moment where I will be able to check it actually.
Right.
So for the heaters, it will be during what we call the months where you can heat. So if you book your apartment during the summer, then you will have to wait for October, which is usually the moment where they open the heaters for when you are in a collective system.
Yeah.
So it's really crucial to, when you do the état des lieux, to note everything, like the cracks, the dirt, or even the dabs, like, I had some difficulties to open the windows or to open the door. It's important to note this kind of thing in order to be held responsible if there is any issue later.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, really, I didn't punch that hole in the wall. It was already there when I moved in. for
Exactly.
example. Yeah, yeah. But what if the place looks clean when I'm, say, checking out my renters, or if I'm a renter and my owners are really nice and I don't want to complain saying, okay, the place looks really good, but maybe the cleaning wasn't 100%. Imagine there's mold on a little bit on the silicone in the shower, or there's dust bunnies underneath a rug or the sofa.
Oh, that's fun because you said dust bunnies. In French, we say mouton, which is like sheep. So interesting thing.
But I don't think sheep fit under rugs.
Yes, you're right. For the, I know that it's very complicated even for us sometimes when we do the check-in and check-out, because when everything is fine, when you have a good relationship, it's always to just target the little details. It's always a bit complicated, but you have to do that because you may discover later some hidden problems. Sometimes it can be hidden on purpose. For example, a tenant, I had that one day, a tenant living, and in the kitchen on the counter there was this coffee maker or something like that, which was not at the usual place, but it was there. And then when we checked out, the apartment looked nice, but in the end, when we moved this, we saw that in fact probably she had put like a pan on the counter and that it was melted, and that
Oh.
she repainted it like with a equivalent gray. So this was completely on purpose. But sometimes it's just like, it's not a bad move from the owner or the tenant. Sometimes there is some things that are broken or missing, and if you don't know that, you can be held responsible for that. And also there is a good point is that you do have officially up to 10 days after you checked in, most of the time for the tenant, this is for the tenant, you have up to 10 days to raise additional problem. Like, for example, when you are going to do the check-in, you are not going to run to pour a coffee, to do a laundry machine, or to launch a dishwasher, for example. Unless you do that, Gail, right?
I do actually. And normally with a tenant, I take a shower with them so they know that the water's working and things like that. And while I'm taking the shower, I put on a quick cycle with my clothes so that my clothes are nice and clean. And then after, I get them to set up the ironing board and iron for me. I've got really nice renters.
Yeah. And I guess that your état des lieux lasts for 3 hours, right?
Sometimes, because sometimes then we have to cook lunch to make sure everything is working.
Okay, I understand. So if you don't do that, know that your tenant has have up to 10 days in order to say, okay, the washing machine is not working, or the coffee machine is not working, or there is a crack in the wall that we didn't see because it was behind a mirror or something like that. So it's important because when you check out, and if the crack is there, eventually it's worse, or if the coffee machine is not working, the owner is not going to tell you, okay, I'm going to buy a new one, and you'll be responsible for that. It happens once also that we did the takeout and the coffee machine wasn't working. So she said that we were saying, okay, it's not working, but it was not working since the beginning. So she arrived like 2 years before, and we didn't know. So how do you set up who is responsible for that?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just broken because it's old, but you have really, as a tenant, you have to note everything and to raise all the problems. And the owner also has to note everything. Usually the owners are more inclined to do that on checkout and tenant on check-in.
Right. Yeah. But I mean, it's a good point because the thing is the owner or the agency is not necessarily going to check and make a cup of coffee either. So unless someone tells us that there's a problem, sometimes we don't really know. And when there is a problem, I always tell people to send me an email. It's fine if they call, but I prefer to have something in writing when there is a problem, just because I can also transmit that to my owner as well, too, and saying, okay, Jane Doe checked in and the coffee maker's not working, for example.
No, it's important to have something written. Even though if it's just like some linen is missing and you send someone over to drop the thing, it's like when there is an issue, you have to have a trace. So you can say at the end, okay, but I raised it, even because we talked about dealing with agency, but when you deal directly with the owners, then if there is an issue, you don't have a third party to make the balance in that. So it's really important to have everything written. not like a regular letter and everything, but just at least an email so you can keep a copy and keep a track of that.
Photos are always really good, I think, too. For both sides to have photo proof. Because if, for example, there is a hole or a crack in the wall, if you can note it on the état des lieux, but if you take a photo, you can see, because then imagine at the end of the stay, there's another hole or crack in the wall, and someone says, "Oh, but it was already there." It's like, "Oh no, here's the photo of the one that was already there." I think that the majority of the people don't try to do anything dishonestly, but that's why everyone has to try to make an effort to make sure it's done correctly, I think. We'll be right back with Paris, A State of Mind, after a word from our sponsors. And now back to Paris, A State of Mind. What if something's really expensive and something is broken? Then what? Like imagine a sofa or something like that.
So it's really important to write things on the picture. Usually now, most of the time, the agents will do some pictures when they do the check-in or check-out. It's not always the case, but you can also yourself take some to make sure, even for you to remember when you leave 6 months after, maybe you didn't know that this thing was at this place or not. About something that you break or that you stain, for example, yes, it's really important, and especially on checkout, because the owner can hold the phones up to 2 months after you leave. So it's really important to make sure that your place is really good, in a good shape, because the owner can deduct the cost, for example, of the cleaning, of the dry cleaner, or on the repairs, like if there is some painting, some silicone you were mentioning, classical thing, the mold on the silicone joint, the bathroom or in the kitchen. This is something which is very often, and it's a responsibility of the tenant. So it's really important to do that. Either you can do that yourself, or you can have the owner taking care of that, but it will be your responsibility when it comes to check out.
And that's the thing. I think most people don't realize that, for example, if the silicone, to use that again as an example, was nice and bright and shiny new when they arrived in the apartment, and when they left, it's, I don't know, black as night, then it's true that most people assume that that's the responsibility of the owner or the agency. But in fact, at the end of the contract, it's the renter, right, that's supposed to make sure that that's correct.
Yes. Yes, and I think that we'll do an episode on that in particular, all the maintenance, all the do's and don'ts, and who are the duties of each and every one. Who do you take care of the ring? Who do you take care of the locks and everything? So it will be probably something, another thing.
I think I need that for an episode, that's for sure. So I guess sometimes people are in a rush to move and things, and the tenant is trying to put things in the right spot and trying to, make sure they're going to get their damage deposit back. What advice do you have for the tenant on how to prepare for the état des lieux to leave, the checkout?
So I would really advise you to check your documents, but not the day before you leave. Like, not, okay, I'm leaving tomorrow. What did I say like 6 months before or 2 years before? So yes, few weeks before, you check your documents of état des lieux, you check the pictures, and you try to look at your property with a brand new eye, saying, okay, what is really the things that are being used by me when I was there? So then you can take care of eventually replace the missing items. Like, for example, if there is some glasses, some, forks and knife who tend to disappear sometime. It's really important that you do that. You can call the owner, email the owner, say, okay, the coffee machine is not working and I'm not using it. Do you want me to replace it? Or you have to find the correct way to have the balance. To balance the thing, to make sure that when you check out, you manage and you master everything. Like, you know exactly what is missing, what did you do, and some of the things that maybe, for example, if there is some water damages from the top floor neighbor or something like that, you do have to know it and to take care of that. You cannot leave that and then when you check out, say to the owner, oh, okay, I'm sorry, but there is like a whole like balloon of water coming up from the ceiling, and it's been there for a while, and I didn't take care of that. You have really to try to have everything in hand. And one important thing that sometimes people forget to use is that your insurance.
That's important. Yeah.
For example, Gail, if you, I don't know if it happened to you already, but if you break something very expensive, or if you push too hard, for example, the fridge door, or if you, it happens to me once, like someone did try to take away the ice in the freezer, and then at the end just took a knife and then, make a hole in that, and all the gas inside, like, psh, came out. So
Oh my gosh.
but for this, we always ask the tenant, because it's mandatory by law, to have a home insurance when they come in, when they check in. So sometimes do use your insurance. Contact your insurance. You may be covered for some of the damage you may have. This is your personal liability insurance. And yes, they may pay for the repairs or for the replacement of the fridge, or for the dry cleaner, for the sofa you stain, or something like that. It's really something that we have to, yes, to face that, and do not run away with like some broken thing under the bed, because at some point your damage deposit, which should be kept. So it's not a good solution.
And what happens if either the tenant or the owner, they don't want to do an état des lieux, or there was never an état des lieux that was done?
So it happens often when people are just dealing directly between owners and tenants, which is very fine for us. But for example, if the tenants and the owners have been neglecting this moment, not with a bad intention, but just that they didn't have the time, or they thought that everyone was nice and just gave a high five and say, okay, that's nice, give me the keys and give me the rent, and that's it. If it's something like that, then by default, we are going to say that the property has been delivered in good state. And the important thing is that, including what we say like réparation locative, which are the repairs that have to be managed by the tenant. That means that, for example, if there is some mold in the silicone joint in the shower, even if it's a little portion, when you're going to do the checkout, by default, if there is no état des lieux, we are going to say, okay, we consider it was clean and it was brand new and shiny when you came in. So this is going to be the tenant's responsibility. You have the second possibility, is that the owner refuses. Like the owner says, okay, I don't have the time, or I don't want to do so. And usually the problem is not when you check in. When you are directly dealing with the owners, the problem can go when you check out, where there is an issue. If so, you have really to insist. You cannot let the owners go with okay, no, we'll see that later. I'll come back when you leave. It's not possible. So you have to do what we call a mise en demeure, which is a strong request that you do by a letter, which are going to be sent with recommandé. How do you say that? Like
Registered mail.
Where we can track that, and then see if he keeps on refusing, and then he wants to deduct some money from the damage deposit. Then he is the one who has to prove the state of the apartment when you checked in. Like okay, he said, I'm deducting 500 euros for the painting in the bedroom, and you were there for 6 months. It has to prove that when you checked in, it was very fine, and that at the end it's not in a good shape, and it's a limited time, because for the paints, for example, there is what we call, I don't know if it's the way we can translate it, the vétusté, which is like the usage, like for example, you paint the whole apartment like with a professional, and then every year we consider that there is a little portion that you can deduct. It's like after 7 years, we consider that even though we have to repaint the whole apartment, nothing can be taken from the tenant, because this is a usability. I don't know how we could say.
Yeah, no, there is a word for that, and of course, my English is not working. But yeah, over time, things go down, like the value of things, and
and depending on the thing, for example, the painting, it's like usually it's 7 years. So after 7 years, you cannot ask anything to the tenant because of the painting, because we consider the paint has to be redone every 7 years. So it's kind of thing like that. And the third part, when there is no état des lieux, it's when the tenant refuses the état des lieux. For example, the guy just say, okay, I left the keys in the mailbox and I'm going away, and I don't want to meet you and everything. Then we will consider that the flat was in good shape. So for the tenant, it's really a bad thing, because if there is any issue, then of course, and even for example, if the check-in was very not that nice, like there was some problems and everything, we will consider that it was completely fine. So it's not a good thing for the tenant. So it's really important to have an état des lieux.
Yeah, everybody has to take the time to do it. We'll be right back with Paris, a state of mind, after a word from our sponsors. And now back to Paris, a state of mind. I think that you made very good points that it really is everyone's best interest to make sure a proper état des lieux and things are done. I've got like so many questions though, like deductions, can we take or not take? What if there's issues with other things? I've got so many questions.
So I will do probably another episode. I will just end the topic of the état des lieux on the what if there is big arguments between the owner, the tenant, and the agent. What if we cannot do anything? Then this will go, you have several stages. If really you have like a major problem with the owners, you will bring the case to some kind of mediation. So it will be at the level of the department. Department will be more like a regional. I don't know how you say it.
So department, like for example, Paris.
Yes, or Île-de-France.
So it would actually not be Paris. It would be the Île-de-France department. So not local.
Yeah, for Paris it's very specific. But for example, like Seine-et-Marne or Val-de-Marne or something like that.
Yeah.
So it will be like something that will be a mediation, will be more like we will try to find a correct in-between situation that can match for everyone. But if really nothing can be done, then it will go to court. An additional thing is that don't use your damage deposit as a last month's rent. This is not legal. If you do that, I know that a lot of people coming from abroad think that, okay, that's not a big deal. I left 2 months, so I don't pay the last 2 months. You will be in trouble if you do so. So you have to really pay your rent up to the end, and you cannot do that. Another thing as well, the owner cannot deduct things without a quotation or an invoice. So if the owner is doing says, okay, I did 10 hours of cleaning after you, it has to be proven by a document, either a quotation, either an invoice confirming that this was the price that was going to be. But there is a lot of things that we could talk about on that. But it's important to note and to do the thing and to raise the issue, even if it's not a nice moment and it's not a very
no more honeymoon.
Nice moment when you raise problem and issues, but it's something that has to be done. Unless you are willing to probably let go your damage deposit, which is pretty high.
Holy cow.
So that was a long one, Gail. So did you catch things to summarize for the people who listen?
Yes, definitely. And I think really the very, very, very most important thing is that always make sure whether you want to, whether you don't want to, whether the agency or the owner does or does not want to, always make sure that you do an état des lieux d'entrée, so when you check in, and an état des lieux de sortie, check out when you leave. Because somebody might get left holding the bag, and quite often it could be the tenant. And I guess we all just have to make an effort to do that. And I didn't realize quite how important it is that if things aren't noted correctly, then in the end, it's really the tenant's responsibility in many, many cases, the majority of cases. And I don't even know where to start. There's so many questions that I have about the état des lieux, about who's responsible for what, and like maintenance and repairs. I really think that we absolutely have to do another episode.
Yes, exactly. On the état des lieux, mostly on the sortie, like the checkout. So like that we can see, okay, for this joint, for this bed which is broken, who is responsible for what?
Yeah. Like who's responsible for a light bulb? Who's responsible for the joints? Oh my goodness. Who's responsible for the window that doesn't open correctly?
Yeah, or for the fridge that is not working anymore, but it's not that young and not that old. So what do we do?
Yeah. Oh, wow.
The guarantee things and everything. So no, it's a topic with a lot of little details, but very important if you want to do that correctly and also to be covered for the thing.
Okay. Well, I'm going to start making my notes right now for all the questions that I have for État des lieux part 2, because I have plenty questions. Did you hear that? I almost said part 2. Oh my
Yeah,
goodness. What's
such a
going on here? Where's my English? Give it back. Give me my English back. Well, thank you very much, Marie. This was super informative, and I'm filled with so many questions. But we'll come back with a part two because I'm sure all of our listeners are also filled with many questions.
Thank you, Gail. Talk to you soon. Bye bye.
Thanks. Have a great day.
Bye
Bye.
bye.
Au revoir.
Au revoir.
Thanks for listening to Paris, A State of Mind, featuring Gail of Perfectly Paris and Marie of Loquim, both who are founding members of the SPLM. Paris, A State of Mind is produced by Paris Underground Radio. The music, Jazz in Paris, is by Media Right Productions. For more information on this show and others, go to parisundergroundradio.com.